Kia ora, welcome to episode 81 of Talking Dairy. Joining us is Cam Henderson, who last year was elected as a board member of DairyNZ. Cam is here to share what it's like being on the board, the challenges and rewards that come with it, and why you should consider throwing your hat into the ring for the nominations. My name is Jack McGowan, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Tēnā koe, Cam, and welcome to Talking Dairy. Let's kick things off with a bit about you. Tell us about where you're based and your background and experience in the dairy sector.
Yeah, so I'm based in North Canterbury, farming just outside of Oxford. Actually grew up in the Waikato and was a next door neighbour to Jacqueline, actually, many years ago as kids, so know each other quite well. Yes, I grew up in a dairy farming family, but decided I wanted to go and study a few other things at university, did engineering and finance, did a couple of years in the corporate world, and then found my way back to farming and landed here in North Canterbury, which was the land of opportunity back in 2008, 2009 when I arrived here. And I've been here ever since. So I've owned the farm here for about 11 years now, converted it just after the earthquake. In the dairy sector in general, so I guess after converting the farm, got involved in young farmers, great way to network down here, that progressed to giving back, I guess, through federated farmers, a few roles, both regionally and nationally there. Got involved with He Waka Kanawa and did a year working for DairyNZ and then 6 months as an associate director and then, now as a director. So, it's been an interesting and varied career in dairying over the last sort of 12 to 15 years.
You were also a member of the Dairy Environment Leaders in that time?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I've been involved in that program for about the last 6 or 7 years as an attendee for a number of years and then on the National Advisory Committee, which is, a fantastic experience, a really positive experience with some very progressive farmers that are really keen to see a good sustainable future for dairy.
Cam, you said you were a director. What inspired you to run for a position on the DairyNZ board?
A number of things, I guess. Over my career in dairy farming, having built my own dairy farm and then got really involved in trying to build a really great environment for farmers to continue dairy farming and, whether it's water quality, greenhouse gases, trying to create an environment that farmers can be successful in. And I guess it started off being very local and about my own farm, and then over time sort of grows into, what can you contribute to the wider region, to my wider community, and then nationally as well. And so really it's just been a continuation of how do you give back to the community, but it's also that intellectual challenge too. Like I love the physical nature of getting out on the farm. I really love, my days I spend on farm, the parts that I get involved with my own business, but really enjoy the relationships and the networking that you get. It's probably ticking a few of my corporate work boxes that I used to do a bit more full-time, and working in boardrooms and liaising with politicians and policymakers. And, it's just a really neat intellectual challenge that balances out what I do on farm. So I couldn't do one without the other, to be honest. They're a great match.
So it scratches multiple itches for you.
Absolutely.
Tell us a bit more about your role on the board and what's the difference between the DairyNZ board and the DairyNZ executive leadership team?
So I guess governance is probably one of those mysterious jobs that everyone sort of hears about, but there's probably not a lot of detail. It's not a career you get taught about at school, or there's not a lot of university courses in governance, So what is it all about? Well, essentially, it's around literally providing direction for the company. So you're not necessarily doing a lot of the work. You're not in there doing a lot of the science, or you're not running a lot of discussion groups in DairyNZ's context. You're there providing the overall vision for the company, and there's a little bit of compliance work in there as well. But it's largely about the vision, the strategy, what do you want to achieve as an organisation, and then supporting the management team to go ahead and do that. So the management team are really the doers, the ones that go away and will implement the strategy. They also help with the design. They need buy-in to this as well, so it is a team effort. But the other doers, we're kind of the ones that ask a lot of questions and just make sure that we're just steering the ship, basically.
And can you talk to us about where accountability for delivery sits? Who's responsible?
As I say, it's a joint effort. As governors, we're not the ones out there doing the delivery, but we certainly are part of understanding what do we want to deliver, what are the right KPIs, how do we want to measure that we've delivered well, and then making sure that we're getting that information back up to board level on a regular basis. So whether it's, the types of science that we're committing to, are those projects being delivered on time and to budget, the number of events that are occurring around the country. Are we getting the right engagement? Are farmers feeling that it's valuable? We're not out there asking the farmers directly, although, we certainly get a lot of feedback as farmer directors ourselves. But it's making sure that we've got the right feedback channels there, that information is getting back, and that we're continually adjusting our vision and our strategy to make sure that we're delivering what farmers really want.
Okay, Cam, can you give us a behind-the-scenes snapshot? So what does a typical day or week look like for a board member of DairyNZ?
A lot of it is about that connection with, your own farming base. So, we're elected for a reason as farmers. So part of that is our general farming knowledge, but also our connections with the community and making sure that we're, providing the right insight back to the DairyNZ board and management. So there's the typical governance duties around board meetings. So we have a board meeting, generally 1 to 2 day board meeting, generally once a month. There'll be some time in reading papers related to that particular board meeting. But the vast majority of our work is probably outside of that. Most of us are involved in some other specific function of DairyNZ. For myself, I'm involved with NZAL, genetics side. So I sit on the board there, and there's papers and work involved there. And then there's the general industry representation, representing DairyNZ at the likes of field days and side PINS conference, making sure that DairyNZ is there and part of the conversation, and the dairy is part of the conversation. And then there's less formal work, I guess, talking to politicians, to local politicians, national politicians as well. So yeah, it's quite a varied range. It's quite different to a lot of governance roles. I do sit on another board which is much more commercially focused. So DairyNZ much more representation focused. But I love that. It's that networking side. That's really where the power of DairyNZ's influence beyond its own borders is really important.
We know every job has its ups and downs. What's been the most challenging part of being on the board, Cam? And then on the flip side, what's been the most rewarding moment that you can recall?
Like any job that you join, when you join a board, any board, there is that element of sort of being able to fit into the culture. And look, DairyNZ's probably been one of the easiest ones for me to be part of. I knew the team previously and know most of the board members personally, which was great. But, governance really is a team effort. It's not like running your own farm where you get to call the shots, or you and your wife or husband get to call the shots. You've only got to convince yourself or one other person. Working with the board is a real team effort. You've got to make decisions collectively. You're all collectively responsible for that outcome. And so it's just getting to understand how people think, what are people's strengths, your own strengths, other people's strengths. How do you negotiate through some of those differences? And look, we do have some very robust discussions, which is great because you need those. That's what governance is all about. That's why you have the diversity there. But it can be a challenge too, that if someone's got a very different view to your own, how do you go about understanding their perspective and then trying to provide your own and coming to a position that hopefully lands somewhere in the middle. So it's a challenge, but I think it's a great skill to learn and one of the strengths of a governance situation. And on the rewarding side, there is so many at an industry level like DairyNZ, because you are not just looking after DairyNZ as a company, which is our official duty. You really are a caretaker for the industry, and so you are talking with all the industry players, Fonterra, Synlait, New Zealand government, local regional councils. And I, as I say, I really love the networking element of working with these people, helping them understand the industry, why it's so important, and trying to find solutions. So that's the core of what I got involved. I love that side of it.
You said you've been involved in various roles, from serving as provincial president for Federated Farmers to advising on regional policy with Environment Canterbury. How did these experiences influence your work on the DairyNZ board?
Everything you do really leading up to some of these board roles is useful in some form or another. And I think you don't get to be in governance at, whether it's DairyNZ or any other board, without you really wanting to give back. It's not a job you take on because you're going to earn lots of money. I mean, while we are paid to do what we do, it is quite a time commitment. And so you've got to really enjoy that giving back. And really, that's just reflected in those previous roles with Federated Farmers and Environment Canterbury. A lot of those are negotiating too, particularly when you're dealing with policy, which is probably where my background's come from, that you've got perhaps your view, there will be a lot of opposing views. And part of the skill that's required going forward within policy making within New Zealand is around how do you listen to all those views and then try to come up with a consensus. And so that collaborative planning that a lot of people have probably heard about is really where policy is developed these days, where you bring all those diverse views into the room and say, right, well, sort it out. How do we find a solution out of this?
How has your hands-on experience as a dairy farmer influenced your contributions?
It's critical that we do have dairy farmers at the DairyNZ board level, and everyone brings different hands-on experience. I've come from, grew up on a dairy farm and have spent a bit of time in corporate career and come back to dairying, and then have got the Canterbury experience, slightly newer farms. We can make it rain when we like, which is great, but highly indebted. So I think it's, like a lot of farmers, is something that we need to be very aware of at the DairyNZ board level. We've got others, that are involved with corporate farming, areas of specialisation in science, some that have spent a lot more time in Wellington and Parliament. So, it's surprising given our, the elective process, and if you were to choose 5 elected farmers, we've actually got a really good level of diversity at the DairyNZ board. We're not all cookie-cutter farmers that have all come from the same area or farming the same style or been involved in farming for the same reasons. So I think that's really useful, and it's really important that we maintain that. And I think when it comes to elections and trying to make sure we get the right mix, obviously that is completely up to farmers, but that diversity, if farmers that are voting, to encourage that diversity and ensure that we don't devolve into that group think of all thinking the same way, is really important. And that's where diversity is really key, and certainly that diversity of farming experience is relevant there too.
Cam, talk to us about the independent directors and how they're chosen or how they round out the board.
Most agricultural or cooperative or levy boards have independents. So we've got farmer electeds that make up the vast majority of directors, so 5 out of the 8 with DairyNZ. And we have 3 independent directors. So why would we have independent directors? They're there to provide skills and experience that it's really difficult to find within the wider farmer base, that you may not find in the farmer base, or that fills some gaps that you might have at the board with any particular group of directors at that time. So more broadly, we generally have certain skills that we look for in the independents. One is around governance experience specifically. Farmers stepping up to governance level. We haven't come through the management, executive management route. We haven't done a lot of work with boards in the past. So having people on the board that actually understand that, have come up through that path, understand what executive management is, how to interact with boards, is really useful. There's skills around, particularly the financial skills. We've generally got a previous chief financial officer from a large organisation there to provide good understanding of what finance and hedging and treasury functions and all those functions that you just don't really see as a farmer, but it's required for an organisation such as DairyNZ. Is really useful. And then we sort of can pick on some certain skills from time to time, whether it's around public relations or science, a real depth of science. We can go out and look for the skills that are really going to help deliver, particularly on the strategy over the coming years. And so those people will change. They tend to serve anywhere between 3 and 9 years as well, depending on the requirements of the board. And the board do go out and hunt for those people. They will select the right candidate, and then they get approved at the AGM. So that is still up for farmers to approve that independent director as well. But they provide some great experience, a lot of diversity, and ask, might call them the silly questions. They don't come from farming backgrounds generally, so they can ask them interesting questions, but that's useful too. We can sometimes start to think, well, this is just the way we do it, and when we get challenged on that, so why do you do it that way? Forces some good discussion. So a very valuable part of the DairyNZ board. And
I understand the board also has associate directors?
We do, yes. So I guess part of the challenge with the progression of how the dairy industry has evolved over time is that we started off 40, 50 years ago with a lot of very small cooperatives. And so stepping onto a cooperative, a small cooperative, there was lots of opportunities, much smaller organisations. And over time, a lot of those cooperatives have merged, and Fonterra is a good example. There's lots of small dairy co-ops that are now one big co-op. And with that has meant that the opportunities to get governance experience at a smaller level have largely disappeared or are much harder to find. So the associate director programs across the industry have tried to step in and provide opportunity for people that are looking at a governance role or a governance career, or just want to see what it's all about, to step into a formal governance experience and try it out for anywhere between 6, 12, 18 months. So DairyNZ is one of many organisations, farmer organisations now, that have an associate director role. So we invite someone onto the board for 12 months and they get the full experience. They get to see everything, attend all the meetings, hear all the conversations, and partake in all of it. They don't have a legal vote on the board and they're not legally responsible as a director, but in all other respects are treated as a board member. So, I said before, I had the opportunity to sit on the DairyNZ board as an associate director, and that was really what cemented for me, the opportunity to head down this track and for anyone that's wanting to dip their toe in the water, whether it's with DairyNZ or any other farmer organisation that's got an associate director role, would really encourage people to give that a go.
Thank you, Cam. For farmers that are out there and considering applying for the board, what other advice or tips do you have in terms of preparing for the role?
It does come with legal responsibility, and I don't always want to lead out with that, but I think it's a really important consideration for farmers. You're a director of a large organisation, and so having a good understanding of what you're signing up for is important. So, look, there's a number of avenues. I think talking to either a current DairyNZ director or any other director of a large corporate or cooperative would be useful, just to get a better understanding of what's involved. There's a number of training organisations out there. Institute of Directors is probably one of the key ones that provide governance training. There's a number of agricultural programs to the core, the Fonterra Governance Development Program, that help farmers gain some of those skills as well. So look, I think that's really important that you've had at least some level of governance training stepping into these roles. But the big part is really just, if you talk to people that you know or want to ring up any of the directors, we'll be more than happy to talk you through more about what the role is about, the ins and outs, and provide a bit more detail.
Now, before we wrap up, any final thoughts or messages for the people listening? And where can farmers that are interested get more information about the nomination process for the board?
Yeah, great. So if you're interested, there will be information available on the website and a number of campaigns running through social media and other forms just to let farmers know that this is going on. So really encourage you to engage with one of those. The nominations are open now for director and close on the 9th of August. So there will be 2 vacant seats for farmers to have to think about this year, which is really important. But look, to all farmers, whether you're looking at standing as a director or not, I think it's really important to engage in the process to put good names forward or shoulder tap some people if you think they might be good at the role. But also, throughout the process, please do get to understand who is standing. It's really important we have good people in these roles. And so please do vote. Spend a few minutes to read through the forms and put your vote in. As I say, this is what's setting a new direction for the company, for DairyNZ and the wider industry. So please get involved.
Thank you so much, Cam, for sharing your insights and experience with us. So look, the main job of any board is to set up the big picture for the team and make sure they deliver. So vision and outcomes. And this is absolutely critical right now, isn't it, as DairyNZ implements our new strategic direction, which really focuses sharply on getting ahead of the big challenges rolling in to ensure our farmers remain profitable, sustainable, and internationally competitive. It's really important work, and there's a window of opportunity here to really make a difference. For our listeners out there, if you're feeling inspired and want to make a difference, nominations are now open, as Cam said, and we've linked the webpage in the show notes. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Talking Dairy. Make sure to hit follow so you can keep up to date with our latest episodes. You can also keep up with DairyNZ News on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn, or go to our website and sign up for our fortnightly DairyNZ News emails. As always, if you have any feedback on this podcast or have some ideas for future topics or guests to have on the show, please email us at talkingdairy@dairynz.co.nz. Mā te wā, Mōri ora, catch you next time.